Hello, it's Andrew Eborn here, and welcome to another thrilling episode of the Andrew Eborn Show. And I'm delighted to welcome my very special guest, me old chum, Spyros Melaris. How are you, Spyros?
Hello, my friend Andrew. Very well, thank you.
I'll tell you what, I love it. There's you knocked up. You've knocked up your living room. You've got your movie on in the background. I love it.
You know what? I pulled all the stops.
I love it. And you've even got curtains to match your eyes. I love it. It's got to be good.
And my knickers.
Hey, are you wearing them for a change? That makes a difference. I love it. And I'll tell you, I've been so looking forward to this moment because you have been incredibly busy over this period. You've been looking after Tony and there's zillions of shows there and how he's reinvented himself.
Yes.
And that's been going really well, hasn't it?
It's quite a challenge, but yes, we did 105 shows consecutively, every single day, 2 hours each, live.
Brilliant. And Tony is such a wonderful, versatile performer, and he's done lots of shows with us, and he's introduced artists, and he does the Bedford, and he does his radio show, and I love Tony. Absolutely brilliant.
He's the best. There's no question about that. But what we did was we set up a show, because what happened was, all of a sudden, there was a massive level playing field, right? So Brian Adams is sitting on his sofa playing with his guitar.
Yes.
Okay. So all of a sudden, right, Wembley's gone, all the big arenas have gone, everyone's on the same level playing field. And I said to Tony, you know what? We need to do something they can't do. And he said, yeah, but we've got a lot of technology and ideas and stuff. And you know what? He's got his sofa, lovely sofa that it is, but it's not good enough, right? So we created Tony's Mind Palace. Okay. And that means that he can go anywhere he wants in his mind palace. Okay, so he's got a swimming pool, he's got a piano room, he's got an aeroplane, he's got a flying saucer, right? So and it's at a request show and it's live. So all of a sudden, right, you've got an amazing TV style show on your computer in lockdown, competing with all the big names.
Yeah.
You know,
sensational. And the guests that you had on had all sorts of extraordinary things. And what I love, as I say, what I love about the pairing of the two of you, you've got those wonderfully creative minds where you can play with all the stuff. And you're, as you say, I saw him I joined many times and tuned in.
Yes,
and you see him riding on his thing and his wonderful outfits. And it was Tony all over, wasn't it?
I know. But you don't realise how talented he is.
No, I do. Of course I know. Of course I know.
I'll rephrase that. Not you. One doesn't notice. One doesn't realise that how talented he is, because what he does on that show, he's the cameraman.
Yeah.
He's the vision mixer.
Yeah.
He's the sound engineer. He's the performer. Okay. He's the costume. He's everything, right? And he does it all on his own in his shed, in his garden, and it looks like it's in a TV studio. It's just phenomenal.
And I have been seeing some extraordinary ones. I mean, everybody's been reinventing themselves. That's what the Chancellor keeps telling us to do. Find a new job and reinvent yourself. A lot of people have done this sort of interactive thing. Some do it very well, but some don't do it so well, do they? What are the bits they're missing?
I think, you know what, I'm going to be a bit of a snob. Okay, I don't like to be a snob because I like to encourage people to try and to do stuff. But people are now, everyone's a broadcaster, you know, everyone's got a mobile phone. Oh, I'm going to go live. You know, I remember when that used to cost me $100 grand a month. Right? So, you know, and they just take it for granted. It's free. And they hold their phone in portrait mode. No, your television doesn't go like that. Your television goes like that. You know, they just haven't got the basics.
Yeah.
Okay. The basics and to making it up as they go along. They're exploring. Takes 20 years to explore, to make it.
I always say, Spyros, I always say is that the more means of communication we have, the less we are able to communicate. And the reality, you know, technology's taken over. Everybody's empowered to do things. So everybody can become a broadcaster. But so few people know that the most essential thing is the message. It's how you communicate.
Of course. Content. Remember the old content. Every content is king.
Yeah, you can't say that anymore.
No,
content is queen and all the bits in between.
Content is free. The communication
thing,
isn't that the truth? You know, I cooked yesterday. I mean, it occurred to me yesterday just how bad it is. Okay, I cooked a meal. There's 4 of us in the house, and I texted everybody to tell them that dinner's ready, right? and they text back and say, I'll get it in a minute. No one's meeting anyone. No one's speaking to anyone. It's all on the phone, and we're living in a family, in a home.
You know, tell me, and I bet as soon as they get to the kitchen table, please pass the salt.
Yes.
You tell him I passed it last time. I know.
I'm not talking to him.
It is extraordinary, but some great things have come out as a result of this. I've been very lucky in lockdown. I'm basically going through the equivalent of a digital Rolodex, and I've been going through those things, and I've been talking to the great and good around the world. I spoke to about 600 people.
I've been watching you. I've been watching you. You've done a fantastic job. And like you say, you know what? It's not about who you are. It's remembering who you are.
Yeah, who's that?
We forget. We forget who we are, right? We're actually, every one of us, we're special in some way.
Yeah.
And you know, you found your niche because you're a people person. Okay, so what you do is you go to people and you converse with them and you mix with them and you're great at that. Okay, so you did that, and all of a sudden there's a niche, and all those people that you've met down the line have now become the thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
It's incredible.
You wouldn't have done it if it wasn't for lockdown. You wouldn't have done it.
Yeah, and what I also found amazing is that we discovered amazing things about them. So not all the magicians who show pictures of their crotch doing card tricks. That's what they do.
In their bedroom.
And that's how it all started. Then they started opening up, and we had a lot of people. So some amazing revelations. People would come on here, and we had James Fortune, who talked about how he was adopted. He sort of revealed to the world that he was adopted.
I didn't know that. You see, there you go.
And all of
them.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. And he opened up, and there were tears and all sorts of a very emotional journey as we peeked beneath the kimono. Andy Clockwise saw that program on this show and said, well, actually, I've never spoken about this beforehand, but I was also adopted. And he wanted to come on the show, rather than doing the magic tricks and things like that.
Yeah.
And he told me a really heart-rending story where he said he found out when he was at the age of 8. And it was a big row where his mother, who he thought was his mother, and his father, there was a big row. The father stormed out of the house, and the mother turned around to him and said, don't be so upset. He's not even your real father.
Oh, no, that's not the way to do it.
And all of a sudden, he found out in that moment, 8 is how old he was. He found out at that moment that not only was that not his real father, she also said, and I'm not your mother.
Oh, great. Oh, no. Stop it. You're going to make me cry now.
Oh, I know. And then you look at that episode, and because of, we were both in tears about it.
Oh.
And we went through that roller coaster journey as a result of doing that sort of stuff. But what happened is all of those then become an inspiration, because if you prick me, do I not bleed? If you tickle me, do I not laugh? And you work out the people are all the same. And if you can spread a little bit of love and spread a little bit of passion and say, actually, you're not alone, then I think people really find that quite powerful.
Great message. Yep, absolutely.
And so what I found in lockdown is that a lot of people, the good that's come out of it is that we've reevaluated what's important.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? You're right. You're absolutely right. We've cut away all the nonsense. You know, you're right. You're absolutely right. I mean, what I've discovered, I'm not adopted. You know,
what are you doing on my show?
I'm so sorry. I'm so
Come
sorry.
on.
I've let you down.
The green sparing gifts. What's that about?
I know.
Nothing.
But it's a lovely horse.
Hey.
It's a lovely horse. No, but I've got the most beautiful parents. Well, I had my dad's gone now, but I had the most beautiful parents. My mum is gorgeous, the best mum you can ever have, right? And so I've got no arguments or complaints in that department. But their message throughout my whole life is do what you want to do, be who you want to be. Nobody ever said to me, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. They gave me advice, but they never said no. They never put a brick wall up and said, no, you're not doing that. Or, you know, and I live with my sister now. So my sister and her 2 boys, just like a family. And it's lovely. It's lovely because we're Greek, and that's the way we are, right? We're just a family. But I look around me and I see people don't have that. A lot of people don't have that. They've lost the fabric of who they are and who they came from. And Andy Clockwise, you mentioned Andy. What a great bloke, right? I love Andy to bits because he's a proper bloke. He's a proper good bloke, right? That's the only way to describe him, right? And I felt a little bit sad then when you just said that, because I felt, well, what's he been through? And he's still a good bloke. He's not bitter. He's not walking around with it, So good on you, Andy, if you're watching.
He's a regular, and what I love about it is that we've had the great and good, and you and I know all sorts of people from all walks of life, and they're prepared to sit down and talk about things such as mental health awareness. I say, rather than just have a day or a week, it should be aware of it 24/7, 365 days of the year. And I very much hope that we're the generation who talk about it so that the next generation don't have to have the stigma.
Yeah.
And what I found about it is that people learn so much from other people. So we've had people who we had some person who was about to commit suicide on Facebook. A guy who, and he won't mind telling because he's learned from that thing. He's been on a couple of times. It's a guy called Nick Jordan who's in Australia, and he posted in the middle of the night that he'd had enough and he's going to take his own life. And all of a sudden, people plowed in, all of his friends and others on Facebook, and showed their real worth and said, look, don't do this. Somebody called the police and they knocked on the door and effectively saved him. Yeah. And then he came on to talk about that experience, to say, look, this is why I want to talk about this. It's really powerful, but I want to learn so I can watch it myself back, but also I want others to know that you're not alone. If ever you feel that desperate, here's some coping mechanisms to work on that sort of basis. And so the power of this, in amongst all people just churning on all sorts of rubbish, is that we get a worldwide community now where we can help each other around the world, can't we?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not the sort of person, I'm not that kind of, I'm very up most of the time. I'm very positive. If something negative happens to me, I think, how can I turn this around? How can I make this positive? And that's how I live my life. But I have been at times when I felt very alone. And that moment, everyone gets it. And when you're in that moment, you're alone for a reason. So who do you reach out to? You can't be alone if you reach out to somebody. And there is a comfort in staying there. There is a safety, an area of safety where, you know what? This is as bad as it gets, and I'm comfortable in this. I know where I am, if I come out of that, it's a scary place, and believe it or not, it is Tony Moore. We spoke to about him earlier. I had a moment a few years ago, and he just said a couple of words to me, not knowing what's going on. And you know what? And I thought, he's absolutely right, because the guy's coming from love. That's where he comes from. He comes from a place called love, right? And that's it. He was born there. He lives there, and he just spreads that, and without, and it's not, I'm a straight guy. He's a straight guy. It's nothing like that. But not that there's anything wrong with that. But it's a case of being true to yourself. Tony won't put the phone down to anybody without saying, I love you, before he does, right? He won't do that. He won't not say, I love you. And I said, why? He says, I don't know when I'll be able to say it next.
It's right? So true. Absolutely. Right? Say today, it's no good telling people, and often people will say this, it's no good. These wonderful eulogies, when people pass, and we've had a few pass in these extraordinary times, it's people turn around and say, oh, there was a wonderful outpour of loveliness and all the best things they've ever said. The one thing, if that person was still here, they would have said, I wish you told me that during my lifetime. That's it. And I think if you work on that sort of premise, say today, pick up the phone now, build those bridges, look up. The world is beautiful. There's a lot of tragedy in the world, but actually it's a tragedy we can do together. And I think if you work on that sort of premise, I think that is one of the good things to come out of it. You mentioned that Tony said 2 words to you. They weren't those 2 words. What were the 2 words?
I'm not going to go into that because it's personal, but I will leave you with this. I mean, to take with you, okay, all of you, and I live by this because it's powerful. Okay, if you see something good in someone, tell them, right? And if you see something bad, keep it zipped. Okay, unless you can help them, right? And sometimes they don't want your help, so just keep it zipped. But if it's good, look for the good and tell them about it. So, for example, nice shoes, say it, right? Your hair looks great today, say it. I love the way your eyes sparkle, say it. Don't be afraid. because I used to be afraid. Because if you see a girl and you think, what beautiful eyes she's got. I'm not pulling her. I'm not trying to pull her or hit on her or do anything creepy. I'm genuinely, as an artist, looking at these eyes and thinking, gorgeous, right? I just want you to know that. I don't want you to walk around not knowing how gorgeous your eyes are. So just say it. Just say it. And you can do it without being lechy, you know? And children are the same. If they do something, reinforce what they've done so they move on. Because I spent a childhood, my dad was brought up by my grandmother, who wasn't a nice person. She's very hard. When I say not a nice person, she was a God-fearing person. She was a good Christian, but she was stern. Okay, so she wouldn't praise, she wouldn't cuddle, she wouldn't, none of that. Okay, and I think that's a terrible thing, right? My other grandma, total contrast from that. But my dad was brought up with that stern upbringing. So when my dad saw me do something good, he felt that if he said well done, I would back off. So the idea is to say, well, that's good, but it could have been better, so that you strive to be better. Well, actually, that's the wrong way to go, because a little bit of encouragement is all you need. Because the minute you tell somebody you did that well, they all of a sudden everything changes.
Oh no, absolutely. And they always say praise in public and criticize in private. And I think you work on that basis. And I think you're right. They talk about sort of show me the child until the age of 7, I'll show you the man or woman. And it works on that basis. And in fact, you talk about your father. He was the first one when you were 6 years old who gave you your first camera, didn't he? An old 8mm one.
Oh,
you made...
no. My dad, we had, my mum and I have a theory, right, that in another life,
yeah,
okay, I don't know if I believe in that, by the way, but in another life, my dad was in love with my mum, who was a princess, and he was just a pauper,
right,
and he would continually bring her gifts. Okay, now what my dad would do is he would pass by an antique shop or a second-hand shop or a market stall, and he would see a guitar or an accordion or a mandolin or any kind of instrument, and he would buy it. He can't play a thing. My dad's fingers were like 2 fingers of one of his fingers. Okay, right. He couldn't play anything because his fingers are too big, because he's a big man. And he would buy these instruments and bring them home to us and hope that one of us learns to play, right? Because he loved it so much but couldn't do it himself.
Yeah.
Okay? So we had everything. I'm not joking. Trumpets, saxophones. The loft was full of all these instruments, and I tried, but it wasn't my thing. And one day he came home with this camera, this 8mm UMIG camera, and I was totally taken by it. It was like, I'm a gadget guy, okay? So all of a sudden it's like, Dad, can I use it? He said, you can have it. Right, so now I've got this camera, and imagine I'm 6 years old and I'm pretending to film. So if I haven't got any film in the camera, right, I'm just walking around pretending to film. Okay, I'm playing cameraman. And one day I said to my dad, can I buy some film? And he said, sure. And he gave me the money. And I went off, bought some film. Now, what happened those days is very magical. You'd go to the chemist, okay, or to the pharmacy, and you would buy a 50-foot roll of film. And then you would load it up, shoot it, then you put it into a little yellow envelope, and you take it back to the pharmacist, or you post it. Right. And then it comes back a week later, okay, or 10 days later, and you haven't got a clue what's on there, because it's not like now, everything's instant, right? Yep. You haven't got a clue what you've shot. It could come back all black, right? Nothing on it, So so I got my first film back. Now I've got a dilemma. I've got nothing to play it on, so I need a projector. Right, so slowly, I got a projector and an editing unit and all that sort of stuff, and I slowly cut my teeth on this little camera. And I actually mentioned this in my book. My book's coming out at the end of this month, and I mentioned it in my book. But I had no idea what it cost to buy these films and how much my dad had to work for me to buy film. Had no idea. I knew what it cost, but I didn't know what it took to earn that money. And he never said no to us, not once.
And I think it's right. It's only by becoming a parent yourself that you appreciate your own parents. And I think looking back, and I always say that to my children, looking back, that's you do appreciate it. But he gave you a great start. And the other element, we come on to this in later episodes, this will be a whole series, the Spyros series. I love it. Also, at the same time, your grandfather introduced you to magic. Talk to me about that.
My grandfather was the most amazing man. I had obviously two grandfathers with different, totally different people with different skill sets. My father's father was a wealthy landowner. He owned the cafe of the town, which is like the pub.
Where was the town? Where were you?
Famagusta in Cyprus.
Yeah.
And he had an orchard, and he had a big block of flats, but the cafe was where all the men used to go to play backgammon and poker, and he had a glass cabinet which was full of expensive cigars and imported whatever, and chocolate bars. Okay, little Cadbury's chocolate bars, because they were very expensive. And my grandmother, being draconian and being horrible, right, she wouldn't let me have a chocolate bar because they're too expensive, right? But he would do this. He'd look around. She's gone. He'd open up that, unlock the thing, take a chocolate bar, give it to me, and then usher me away quickly before we get caught. Okay, so we had this thing going on. One day, he did the usual over to his table, and I rushed over, and he showed me a handkerchief, and he showed it to both sides, and he took a toothpick from the table, put it into the hanky, folded it all over, and asked me to break the toothpick. So I broke the toothpick, I heard it crack, and I broke it myself, and then he opened it up and revealed it wasn't broken. Okay,
miracle.
That was it. I was hooked. Okay, so I badgered him. Please, Granddad, teach me. And he said, you can't just learn, you have to respect. Don't know what that means. I'm 6 years old. I haven't got a clue what that means. Or 5.5 or whatever I was. What does that mean? I have to respect what? Just show me, right? No, things come slowly, and what you've got to do is, first of all, think about when I show you that you're not going to tell anyone else. You mustn't tell anyone else what I teach you. It's between us. And eventually, he taught me that first one, that first trick, and then he told me about this magical place in London called the Magic Circle. And he said, I always wanted to be a member of the Magic Circle, but he couldn't get out of the country. He was busy, he was working. It was just, in those days, it wasn't like now. You can't just jump on a plane and go anywhere you want. It was not anymore. Yeah, it's come back to that. But it was expensive, and it was, so you had to dress up to go on an aeroplane. It wasn't like it. So, but he told me about this amazing place, this Magic Circle. And he said, one day, if you practice, you can be a member of the Magic Circle. But you've got to respect. And I kept hearing this word, respect. And of course, as life went on, the little words, the gems that he gave me fell into place. Oh, that's what he meant. Because they sat there, but it didn't have to make sense. But later, he said, you can be anything you want with practice. You could be as lucky as you want to be. Right.
Sound advice, and I think you work on that basis. And what I love, because it shows, as I say, Socrates, when he's not playing football, he was the one who said, "Show me a man until the age of 7, and I show you the full-grown man." And that's that sort of principle. So it is really interesting, because that's where you get the combination of your love of creating film together with magic. And when we join us next time, we'll have a look. We're going to take you all the way back to July 1947, a little incident that happened at a small place that people might have heard of called Roswell. And the truth will be revealed once and for all regarding the Alien Autopsy and that wonderful clip you keep showing behind you. And it's good. And we'll talk a bit more about your book. But for now, Spyros Melaris, thank you very much for joining me.
My pleasure. It's been lovely. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. See you soon.